Committee being held under the Local Authorities Coronavirus Meetings Wales Regulations 2020. It is not practical for this meeting to be broadcast live. However, a recording of this meeting will be made available as soon as possible after the meeting has concluded. We welcome the use of the Welsh language at meetings. I have had no requests for people to speak Welsh today, so this meeting this morning will be conducted in English only.
Gosh.
Please can members use the chat bar to indicate when you want to speak, and remember to keep your microphone muted when you are not talking. Right, we'll move on to the agenda. Attendance and apologies. Rachel, do we have any apologies?
Yes, I've received apologies from Councillor Veronica Crick and Councillor Faye Jones.
Right. It's we've got a few new councillors, haven't we, this morning? Is Emma Rapier here?
She's not here, Chair.
She's not. I know Councillor Dave Thomas is here, and I'd like to welcome you, Dave, to your first planning meeting. And
thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. Nobody else is there, Rachel? First meeting?
No, Chair.
Right, thanks. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Geraint, could you please ask members in alphabetical order to state whether they have any interest to declare?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, if I can just start with Councillor Ashley, please.
Yeah, planning application number 5, that's obviously in the Cwmbran Community Council area. So, Cwmbran Community Council.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bevan?
No declarations of interest.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Burnett?
None whatsoever.
Thank you. Councillor Constance?
None whatsoever.
Councillor Steve Evans?
Yeah, item 4, I'm seconded from the Brecon Beacons with the Glenavon World Heritage, and that's mentioned in item 4.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Haller?
Nothing, no interest to declare.
Okay, thank you. Just check, I don't think Councillor Gaynor James has joined since we started, but I'll just check. No, I don't think she has. I'll leave her. Councillor Jenkins?
Nothing at all.
Thank you. Councillor Janet Jones?
Yes, Chair. On item 4, I wish to reiterate that as a ward member, I've been involved with concerns for the residents. However, I've not been in contact with the applicant. And before I make my decision, it'll be based on the information given to me by members and officers this morning.
Thank you. Councillor O'Connell?
No, nothing.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Parish?
Yes, I have a personal non-prejudicial interest in agenda item 6 as a member of Pontypool Community Council, which has been consulted on the.
Thank you, Chair. And finally, Councillor Thomas.
Yes, thanks, Geraint. Yeah, I'd like to make members aware that I'll be excluding myself even from the meeting whilst consideration of agenda item 5 takes place. I don't tend to speak in my capacity as a member of the planning committee. Neither will I participate in the vote. The reason for this is because I have already made up my mind on agenda item 5.
Thank you very much. That's all, Chair. You're on mute, Chair.
Thank you for letting me know. Right, item agenda 3, minutes of the planning committee from 15th of October. There is one small alteration on page 5 in point 4.5, the 6th bullet point, and it should read an historic covenant. Right. Geraint, could you please ask members in alphabetical order to state whether they agree that the minutes are a true and accurate record of the meeting?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. If I can start with Councillor Ashley, please.
Agree.
Councillor Bevan.
Agreed.
Councillor Burnett.
I'll abstain because I wasn't at that meeting.
Councillor Constance.
Agreed.
Councillor Evans.
Agreed.
Councillor Hawler.
Not present at that meeting.
Councillor Jenkins.
Agreed.
Councillor Janet Jones.
Agreed.
Councillor O'Connell.
Agreed.
Councillor Parish.
Agreed.
And, well, Councillor Thomas wouldn't have been there, I don't think. Is that right? Nope.
I think you're right there, Geraint. Thank you, Geraint,
Yeah,
for that.
so I didn't exist.
Okay, then, thank you, Geraint. We'll move on to agenda item 4, planning application 20/P/00421/FUL. This was deferred, this item, the planning application was deferred from the last meeting for further information. And it's for removal of hedgerow and replaced with fence panels, including change of use of land at Talacha 1, Hanover Close, Blaenavon. Can I ask Adam Foot Planner to present the report, please?
Hi, thank you, Chair. Yes, so as Councillor Parish mentioned, this application was deferred previously due to councillors wanting additional information in relation to the ecological mitigation that would be proposed and would be considered acceptable by the council's ecologist for this application to pass. That information has now been supplied. I'm just trying to share my screen a second so that I can bring that up. Is that showing on screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, I'll just run through the premise of it. The application is for a change of use of section of the land. It'll involve the removal of a Leylandii hedgerow and replacing it with a fenced area enclosing the area that runs parallel to the Firs, which is a residential development within Blaenavon. The applicant wishes to do this as the hedge maintenance has become too much for them and it's causing significant damage to their property on the inside. This is just a Google Map Street View image showing the ongoing maintenance over the years, as this does here, and you can see where they've maintained it up to a certain point. This is what the fencing is proposed to be constructed using, and this is the ecological mitigation that has been proposed. This has been considered acceptable by the council's ecologist, and it consists of a hedgehog holes in the fence, a swift bird box to the property, as well as a addition to the garage as well. So that is the proposal that we have for. Sorry, I'm trying to. That is the proposal that we have. That was reported to the council's ecologist, and they are satisfied with that.
Adam, we couldn't hear that last part. We had a lot of interference.
Oh, sorry.
Back and just a little bit, please.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so basically that was submitted to the council's ecologist for consideration. They are satisfied with the proposed mitigation, and that has they would be satisfied that what is proposed is adequate to allow for this proposal to go on, and that is the update that's come further from last month, and so that's the only update different.
Right, thank you, Adam. Geraint, can you confirm if there are members wishing to ask a question or comment?
Yes, please, Chair, may I?
There's nobody in the chat, or there's no hand icons raised, but obviously Councillor Jones is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Jones.
Thanks, Chair. Since the last meeting, I've really looked into this and gone on the Woodland Trust. And the Woodland Trust are encouraging local authorities throughout England and Wales to increase local authority powers for under hedgerow regulations to protect hedgerows. Now, hedgerows form habitat for at least 27 species of wildlife, of which 13 are rapidly in decline. Now, this hedge isn't technically Leylandi; it's a form of a fir, hence the fir's name, and it houses dormice, butterflies, birds, etc. And although we have this amendment, I still don't think that it satisfies the need for for our wildlife. Because in 1997, during England and Wales, regulations aimed to protect all hedgerows of more than 20 metres in length, whether there is a break-in or not. And I think this hedge has been there over 40 years, and I think it's longer than 20 metres long. And I think taking away this hedge is going to be detrimental to all wildlife and habitat when under our own Torfaen climate sign up to our climate change. We are supposed to be making our area a cleaner and greener area, and taking out this hedge, I think, is going against what we all believe in. So technically, I'm still not satisfied that it's enough for our ecology, and it's really worrying me of the loss of habitat that we can have in this area, which is really a lovely part of Glenavon.
Right. Would you like to answer that, Adam?
Sorry, I'm not sure if there was a question there. I mean, I completely understand what you are saying in terms of the loss of the hedgerow. I mean, all I can go on is the advice from our internal ecologist on whether they deem the mitigation proposed to be adequate, and they have. I wouldn't be in a position to query that what they've said is not sufficient.
Two other questions, if I may, Chair. Two other questions. If the hedge is removed and there's damage to the curb off the main road up to the firs, who would repair that as this road is not adopted? So therefore, if someone slipped off the curb was damaged, who's going to be responsible? And secondly, if there is any gravel down there, that obviously, because I know the area quite well, a lot of water comes down that road during storms, and it could wash out onto the main road, causing more hazards.
Right, Adam, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, firstly, what I would say is that there's not actually any pavement on that side for pedestrian users. It's on the other side. So although there is a curbstone, it's not a footpath that people can use. In terms of the repair, I'm not sure. I'd have to check on that. I'm not sure if there's someone else on the call that is able to answer. I'm not sure if Paul or Polly are able to.
No, I don't think. Well, if it's not adopted, I don't think that the council would be responsible for doing it, for repairing any such road. But then again, that's another issue which has to come into consideration, doesn't it?
I believe typically if there are any damages to the highway, then it is dealt with by the applicant. I can see Paul has raised his hand, so I think that would probably be best for Paul to answer that question.
Yes, please.
Will Paul Wheeldon please come in?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. If the applicant damages any part of, it's still a highway, even though it's not adopted highway. So we as a council have responsibilities to ensure that if any damage occurs to that, is put right. So if the applicant damages any part of the highway, even though it's not adopted, we can ensure that they put it right. With regard to the gravel, I I think the gravel's been set down below the height of the curb, so there shouldn't be any washout onto the highway. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you. Right, are you okay now, Janet?
Only one. I need to come in something in, but I want to bring that in a bit later, Chair, if I may, because I don't know if anybody else wants to speak up first.
Well, I have an indication from Gaynor. James Gaynor, did you want to come in? You're on mute, Gaynor. We can't hear you. You're on mute. Gaynor, you're on mute. We can't hear you. Right, then.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm outside the shop, I am. I started to do this meeting down in the office in the market, and there was a genuine fire, so we were all put out on the street. So I'm actually on my phone now, which is very difficult. I just wanted to say about this hedgerow. There's nobody more that loves wildlife and animals more than what I do. But I've seen over the years what these people have done and how hard they've worked to keep that hedgerow looking as good as it does. Now, if that hedgerow had been my property, that would have been dug up a long time ago, especially damaging the original fence. Now, it shows that they care about what it looks like, because the fencing that they want to replace it with is really, really smart. And I know that if they stopped cutting that hedgerow, it's going to grow out into the road, it's going to be 10 foot tall, and no one's going to look after it. So I approve this planning. I approve to have this done, because otherwise it's going to be an eyesore.
Right, thank you for that, Gaynor. Gwyn, would you like to come in?
Yes, yeah, I've listened to all the arguments. I've actually been up on site, and I think this is another case where this needs a site meeting. And it's all right for people to say we can't do a site meeting. We can do a site meeting, and I really think that down south, these people need, councillors need to come up and have a look. If it's anything down south, I make a point of going down there, and I've done places, me and Janet have gone to different areas to have a look at things. There's a couple of things have gone through up north, which I haven't agreed with. And I think that if the councillors down south had come and met us on site, I think different results would have happened. And I really think that this is causing a bit of a controversy, this one up in Blenavon. And I really think we need a site visit. We can all individually get up there, keep our mask on, and have a look at it. Because I agree with Janet. I think you're setting a precedent here where you're going to cut down with all the wildlife up there. I go past there twice a day, and yeah, it's beautifully kept. And my understanding is that if this gentleman doesn't want to proceed with looking after it, that there's other people around the area that will look after this hedge. So I think it needs to be further consultation on this one. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you. Adam, would you like to go through the reasons why this application doesn't need planning permission for the hedge to be taken up? You're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the hedgerow in this area is not under any sort of tree preservation order, and it's not deemed as being ancient hedgerow either. So it's not. It doesn't have protection in that manner. The two elements here that require a change of use is one, the change of use of the land to extend the residential curtilage, and the second is for the erection of a fence over 1 metre in height adjacent to a highway. So the removal of the hedgerow is not something that's controlled by planning legislation. So that hedgerow could be removed without consent. So that isn't something that would warrant a reason for refusal of this application just on its own, because it can be removed without consent.
Thank you, Adam. Is there anyone else would like to come in?
Chair, can I bring a question, please, before you close? Adam, would the applicant consider putting this fence on the inside of the hedge near his property, and then the rest of the neighbours would take over responsibility for maintaining the hedge?
I mean, I don't know. That's not something that I've discussed with them because, I mean, ultimately, they are entitled to apply for whatever they would like to apply for in terms of in terms of planning consent. But sorry, and Rich, I think Richard wants to come in.
Yeah.
Richard Lewis would like to come in. Can you come in, Richard, please?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Chair. I certainly appreciate the issue with the hedge, and I think that we do our best to retain hedges and plant new hedges going in terms of any applications coming in. The difficulty with this one is that the hedge is wrapped up with the extension of the garden area, and the hedge on its own doesn't need permission to be removed. We simply can't control that under planning law, but obviously we can control the extension of the garden. So I think that we've obviously been to committee once with this application. It's been deferred for further information. I think that the applicant has made it clear what they want to do, and really I think it's now for members to probably make a decision on the application. I'm not sure that we're in a position to try and broker a deal between the residents and the neighbour as a planning authority anyway. That would need to take place, I think, in another forum. But I think our job now and for members is to look at the application before them and make that decision, bearing in mind the report and what officers have said.
Right. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Right. If there's no one else wanting to comment or ask a question, can I ask a member to move a proposal, please?
I'll move a proposal.
Can you say that again, please, Gaynor? I don't think we quite...
Yes, I move it and approve it, Chair.
Thank you, Gaynor. Right, we've had a motion to approve it. Is there a seconder?
Did he have a report? Yes. Richard.
Did somebody second it then? It didn't come across.
I'll second that for you, Norma.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you. Right, we'll ask Geraint now. Could you please ask members in alphabetical order how they wish to vote, stating for, against, or abstain? Thank you, Geraint.
Thank you, Chair. If I can start with Councillor Ashley, please.
Abstain.
Councillor Bevan. Councillor Bevan. Shall I come back to him in a sec, Chair?
Yes, please, Geraint.
Okay, Councillor Burnett.
For.
Councillor Constance.
For.
Councillor Evans.
Abstain.
Councillor Haller.
Abstain.
Councillor James.
For.
Councillor Jenkins.
Against.
Councillor Janet Jones.
Against.
Councillor O'Connell.
For.
Councillor Parish.
For.
Councillor Thomas.
For.
Thank you. If I can just come back to Councillor Bevan, please. I just check. He is still, yeah. Councillor Bevan's still in the meeting. I don't know whether if he's in trouble with his mic, Councillor Bevan's able to say in the chat bar whether or not he's for, against, or abstaining.
Yeah. Could you use the chat bar?
I'll just give him a couple of seconds, Chair, see if anything is written in.
Okay.
For. Thank you. Right. 1, 2, 3. That's 7 for, 2 against, and 3 abstentions.
Thank you, Geraint. So this planning application has been approved. Right. Right, we're on agenda item 5. I think Councillor Dave Thomas is now going to leave the meeting. Okay, Dave, you gone? Right, thank you. Can I confirm with you, Geraint, that Councillor Thomas has left? Geraint?
Sorry, Chair, I was talking on mute. Yeah, he's gone.
Right. Thank you, Geraint. Agenda item 5, planning application 20/P/0481/FUL, and it's for the change of use of approximately 27 square metres of existing office space into A3 takeaway at Full Circle House, Lakeside Park, Llantarnam, Cwmbran. Can I ask Rebecca McAndrew, Principal Planner, to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'll just share my presentation a minute. Bear with me. Bear with me, I'm having a technical hitch.
Okay. Right, I can, oh, it's gone now. I was just going to say, it's gone. It's up again, Rebecca.
Okay, so you can see that now?
I can, thank you.
That's okay, brilliant. Okay, we'll start then. So thank you. Before I start, I'll just advise you that since the agenda was published, our economic development team have confirmed they do not object to this application. So just for that to be logged, please.
Thank you.
So the application is for the change of use of a corner of an existing industrial unit to an A3 use. The existing unit is currently occupied by a business in the hospitality sector, and the proposal would involve the change of use of 27 square metres of floor space at the front of the building. The business would serve existing employees on the industrial estate and would also provide a delivery and takeaway service for the wider residential area. So I'll just take you through some slides now to explain this. So the top image there is a block plan of the site. So this year is Unit 6, the existing industrial unit, and it's proposed to change the use of this front corner here of the building. I've just gone over it roughly to illustrate that. This bit here is just the block plan of that proposed unit, and this here is the front elevation as existing of the unit. So the proposed A3 use would go into this part here. So here's a photo of the building as it currently is. So the A3 use would go into this front section here of the building. And then finally, I've got the Google Maps image just to put the site in some context. So this is Lakeside Park, and you'd enter into the site, drive through here and go up here to the takeaway business, which would occupy this part here of this wider industrial unit. There are two main reasons for concern regarding the proposal. Firstly, the proposal would involve the loss of existing industrial floor space, which is contrary to LDP policy EET5, which seeks to protect employment land within the borough. And secondly, A3 uses are more generally appropriate to town or neighbourhood centres. The applicant hasn't shown that there are no more suitable premises in more sustainable town or neighbourhood centres for this use, which was the requirements of Planning Policy Wales. This isn't considered to be a sustainable form of development. A large part of the business would be takeaways and deliveries for the wider residential area. Inevitably, most customers visiting this out-of-town location would do so by car. By contrast, a town or neighbourhood centre with sustainable modes of transport. The proposal would therefore contrary to policy S2 of the local plan, which promotes development which reduces reliance on the private motor car and encourages the use of more sustainable modes of transport. Finally, I think it's useful to highlight differences between this proposal and other A3 proposals which have recently been considered on Lantern Park. Members will recall the Greggs application. The key differences between Greggs and the current proposal is that the Greggs was to serve the industrial estate, people working on that, so it was considered to be a complementary use. And also that was a new build, so it did not represent the loss of an existing building or floor space of industrial units. And also that land had been vacant for a number of years. Also more recently, members have looked at the Lantern Parks Cafe. Again, the loss of industrial land didn't come into play there because it was proposed for a wooded area, so there was no existing industrial building or floor space to be lost. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Right, I'd like now to bring in the first third-party speaker, Councillor Alan Slade, ward member. Councillor Slade, you have 5 minutes to address the committee and you will be timed by Geraint. Okay, Alan.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you, Alan.
Great, thank you very much.
Right, Geraint will time you, okay? 5 minutes. Okay, Alan?
Yep, that's fine.
Right.
Good morning, members. Good morning, everyone. Yes, I was rather surprised to see this come up to committee, actually, because normally change of use is dealt with by officers. It's a delegated issue. And my gut reaction, if you like, my knee-jerk reaction was to pop down the business park and just see for myself how much of a difference this would make in terms of loss of employment, and whether other A3 developments had previously gone ahead. And I've given you all photographs. But since then, I've considered it a bit further. And if you think about it, is it really a loss of employment land? Because I don't think it is. I think what it is a repurposing of a redundant office within an existing industrial unit. And the advantages of that, really, because what you have to think about is if this doesn't go ahead, it poses a threat to the other 11,973 square meters of the building. So is it a loss? I don't think so. I think it's an opportunity to sort of maintain employment. And then, of course, one of my photographs is of Greggs. And I mean, when you look at that site, it was 668 square meters, yet that was accepted. Now, I understand that it was a new site, but there had previously been a successful application on that land. And I mean, the local development plan is all about a strategic use. So the fact that you couldn't sell it now shouldn't really have made a difference, yet that wasn't a problem. So I would, as I say, I would ask you to consider whether it's a loss or not. The second issue about it is whether it follows policy. Now, I dug out the Greggs application, and let me tell you what the forward planning department said. Forward planning said, the proposal is unacceptable. This is Greggs. The proposal is unacceptable as it does not satisfy the requirements of policy RLT4 in terms of a retail use being acceptable, and does not satisfy the requirements of policy EET5, which is the one that has previously been mentioned here, in relation to the loss of employment land to an alternative use. Now, this is the kicker. It also says, in addition, no sequential test information has been provided. Now, I'd ask you to bear that in mind. That was accepted and it was recommended for approval by officers. This, on the other hand, is a much, much smaller development, and yet it's deemed to fail because they didn't do a sequential test. See, this business only works if it resides in the building that it is in. And I don't understand how, looking at vacant plots up in the town centre. That isn't any good to this business. This business model is predicated on it helping the existing industrial unit remain in existence and protecting existing jobs. Now, the other thing that struck me about this is that, you know, it says it's unsustainable because people will travel there. Yet there's an assumption that Greggs, no one's going to travel to Greggs. And yet Greggs is sort of further removed from the employment area than this. I mean, not only have you got the existing employees of the business who are going to use it, next door, within 50 meters, is a training centre. And surely the students, they would use it. So I don't see it. In fact, I would argue this is more sustainable than, if you like, McDonald's. Because if you look what's happening in our town centre now with these delivery drivers, we've had antisocial behaviour like you wouldn't believe. It's been subject to police action. I mean, this is an ideal location for such a business. And you talk about sustainable, I mean, they're even promising to use electric vans. The other thing I would say about people travelling back and forth, I mean, Greggs is a national identifiable product. These are competing with Domino's, Pizza Hut, all these others. Frankly, I would urge you to accept this application. I would approve it straight away. I'm out of time. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Alan. Now I'd like to call in Councillor Dave Thomas. Are you there, Dave?
I'm just going to invite him in now, Chair.
Okay.
I believe he's in the meeting now, Chair.
Right, thank you, Geraint. Dave, you will have 5 minutes to speak and it'll be timed by Geraint. So if you'd like to start.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Chair. Members, I find myself once again in a position where I feel you should acknowledge and appreciate the ward members' point of view and fully accept our knowledge and total understanding of our ward. I appreciate your respect for our planning officers, and I understand that their recommendation for refusal is based on planning regs. But not everything in life is black and white, and the situation the applicant find themselves in is no fault of their own. The applicant's company is a victim of this awful pandemic. It has ripped through his company and his colleagues, and they are trying to think outside the box on this one for the pure survival of their existing company. You've heard from Councillor Slade and what he's had to say, but I would like to speak to you all on a more compassionate note. I'd like to start with a brief history with the applicant, about the applicant, and the fact that they have been in business in Cwmbran for over 30 years, employing hundreds of people, some of which have been with that company for over 25 years. The bills the applicant are paying are still coming in. Yes, furlough schemes have of course helped, but insurance, vehicle leases, loan repayments all have to be paid. And just keeping this building open is a task all on its own. As far as this planning is concerned, it's not just about being able to open a pizza parlour. It's about opening a pizza parlour in Llantarnam and keeping the building open and the applicant's staff employed. This project is to give the business another income stream to help pay the bills until the world comes back to life, especially in the hospitality sector, which has by far been the worst hit. I cannot emphasize enough that this company needs a new income stream for the time being, and I am certain this is the answer to it. Or the alternative will be a 12,000 square foot building left empty if you vote against this application. And as Councillor Slade has already emphasised, There are more and more office and units in Llantarnam left empty now than ever before. So I'm asking members not to look at this as going against officers' advice. I'm asking you to look at this from a business person's point of view, from someone who is desperately trying to not only save his company, but to save the building he has taken decades to build up. You have the power in your hands to help them save it and the staff that they employ. Maybe not everyone will be saved, but the majority of them will. So as one of the ward members for Llantarnam, I implore you to agree with me and vote for this new venture and approve this planning application. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you, Dave. Rebecca, do you wish to comment on any of the remarks made by the ward members?
Chair, sorry to come in just before Rebecca. Does Councillor Thomas need to leave now, or does he or stay in?
I think he needs to leave.
Okay.
Yes. Well, you can check with our legal advisor if you like, but I think he should leave. That's what usually happens.
Yes. Councillor
Yes.
Councillor Thomas now needs to leave the meeting, Chair.
Thank you, Polly. Okay, Dave. Right. Rebecca, would you like to comment on the remarks made by the ward members?
Yeah, Councillor Slade was commenting quite a lot on the Greggs proposal. I've already outlined what we feel the differences were there, but I just wanted to highlight again that the Greggs was clearly to serve the existing industrial estate. They already have 3 shops in the town centre, so it was seen as a complementary use. Rather than introducing a new and wider use for the whole area. And the condition of the Greggs consent limited the opening hours to 6 AM to 7 PM, so that closed in the evening to make sure that the use remained as a complementary use. Whereas the pizza business would be open till 11 PM every evening. So there are some key differences there. And I just sort of note what Councillor Thomas said about the economics of the existing business, but there are no material considerations that outweigh the development plan in this case. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Rebecca. Right, I've got 3 speakers. Jason O'Connell first, then Ronnie Burnett, then Steve Evans. So Jason, would you like to come in now?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say I can understand both sides of this argument, and it's been a pretty good debate, to be honest. If we take the LDP as it currently stands, I think anybody in the planning department could look at that and say it's quite black and white in terms of what we should be approving and should not be approving, and what does and doesn't go against the LDP policies. But we're not in normal times, and I think this business has been quite innovative in seeking out alternative revenue streams that effectively keep his business alive. And I think we as a council have to adapt ourselves to support our businesses and to support women who run them and who are looking to offset costs against a declining economy. So with that, I think it's in our interest in this case to look at it favourably, to support both the new applicant in terms of the business that's going in, and to allow the current employer of the facility there to potentially secure the employment that he's currently offering through whatever means. And I think I'll be looking to support this application and vote against the officer's recommendation. I also commend the business owner in looking at these kind of solutions to maintain the business. So yeah, well done. Thank you.
Okay, Jason. Ronnie Burnett, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. This might sound a bit repetitive with the other speakers, but it's on the same wavelength. And I've read through the reports and also read what Mr. Moss has said, and I can see where he's coming from. And he needs to make ends meet at this building and to retain staff and retain jobs there as well. As we look around today, as other members said, we're in a situation of a pandemic, which we've never known before, and hopefully we never see again when we come out of this. So we have to today look outside the box and look what's happening around us, with hundreds of thousands of jobs being lost, and this could lose even more jobs as well. People have to keep employed. Employers have to keep their staff employed as well. Mr. Moss's building, as we know how big it is, has gone from an £800,000 turnover a month to zero. And I've looked at the officer's report, and as I said, and as everybody else said, we respect what they do, and they have to go with planning regulations, as we know. But today, as I said, we must look outside the box. We are here to protect our people that employ people in our wards. And as Rebecca said about the Greggs application as well, and this is why I've written down, Greggs already have 3 units in the town centre. Do they need one on an industrial estate? I don't think so. Did they look at Cross Ceilog and Llanravon or other areas they've gone to? But no, they've seen the opportunity to make more money. And here we are, we have an application which will turn down a business that has worked so many, many years to build up. And we will put people out of work as well. And I feel sorry for everybody that's losing their jobs within the country and all around the world, really. And I think as a council, we're here to protect people as well. And what I would like noted, because I will be proposing to accept this application as a proposal, is it's not set as a precedent for the future, because when we come out of this, planning regulations will still be there and we will still look at them as they should be looked at. But I think today, as members of this committee, we should be looking outside the box and protecting people and giving the local businessman a chance. We give the multiples a better chance than them. So I will be proposing that we accept this proposal for the pizza takeaway. It is only a small part of his unit, a little piece in the corner. And if that helps sustain jobs and keep his business going to pay his overheads there, I will be proposing this as to be accepted. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Do you want to come in, Rebecca? You're muted, Rebecca. I can't hear you.
I just note what Councillor Burnett said about the economic issue. I guess you're saying is tied into the existing business. Well, there's nothing stopping the units going to another person to run. So whilst the application puts it forward as a business to help out the existing wider business that runs at that site, there's no restrictions to stop another A3 use coming in and taking up that business in the future. And it's also sort of difficult, I think, to, while you say we're not setting a precedent, I think it'd make it more difficult for us to stop other similar proposals coming forward for the rest of the industrial estate, which we try to keep as an employment site as per the local plan policies.
Right, thank you, Rebecca. Steve Evans, you're on the list. Steve.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I've got 2 questions. The first is, as you started the meeting, you said about the talk about employment and in support of it. Why haven't we been working closely with them to find a resolution to make this work? And the second question is, on the Llantarnam estate, what vacant industrial space have we got within that area that takes into question the small space that this firm wants to take up to make this takeaway?
Right, Rebecca, do you want to answer that?
Yeah. I haven't got any figures, I'm sorry, on the existing empty units on the estate. As we know, prior was this time last year, it was a very, very busy estate. I don't know what's happened since then in terms of the loss of any businesses from there, but that I haven't got that information, sorry.
Right, okay, Steve. You don't want to come back? Okay, then.
Yeah, I will, Chair. We're making a decision when we don't know the full facts. So that's the question I'm asking. We're using that as a reason of a refusal, yet we haven't got all the information regarding the unused space.
I think that the LDP seeks to retain, I think everybody agrees that we need to be retaining employment uses across and employment land across the borough, and the ultimate aim of the LDP is to make sure that when businesses grow, there's enough existing industrial floor space within the borough to accommodate those uses, rather than it's sort of gone off to other A3 or other retail and A3 uses. So that's what the policy is based on, like securing and safeguarding employment land and employment floor space, so that when the economy does pick up and businesses do require floor space, is there and available to be used rather than lost to a different use. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Right, Gwyn, you were next.
So I listened to all the arguments. I don't think that any decision could be made on this COVID, because this COVID hopefully will be in a year's time. There's a lot of people in the area that have lost a lot of money, and some firms are near, very, very near closing, including my own, which doesn't make any difference to what my thinking is on this one. I think we should make a decision on this on the long term, not the short term. Yeah, at the moment, I think, yes, it's a great idea, but I don't think it should be done on the excuse of being in the pandemic. I think it's got to be done from the long term, not the short term. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Janet, you are next.
Thanks, Chair. Some of the questions that I was going to raise have already been raised by Gwyn and Steve. I've read the report. I've listened to what Alan Slade and Councillor Thomas have said. And my heart goes out to this gentleman, because he's trying to keep his business afloat. And I think whilst I applaud what our officers are saying, I think it's going to be a really difficult decision to come to at the moment. But I really feel that we should take every application on merit. And as I said, hopefully that we will make the right decision on this. And at the moment, I'm going to back the application.
Right, thank you, Janet. Stuart, you are next.
Just unmute. I have a problem with this. My heart goes out to the guy, to be quite honest, because I understand the implications. I'm not sure if I do agree with Gwyn on this. The problem we've got is the short-term nature of keeping people employed, and then we've got the problem. If you look at Cwmbran, it lists it all the local sort of businesses in the food industry. We have old Cwmbran. We have the new units that are coming in just up the way from here. Rebecca's rather eloquently said that we're trying to keep space, but the problem, and I have discussed this with other people, is that we have these industrial estates where we do have takeaway businesses in. I mean, Springvale's the example where you have allowed them, and they're in there. So we got them on Lantarnum. So do we allow it or don't we allow it? Can we, and what you said to us about whether we allow this in here on a short-term basis, and if we do allow it in a short-term basis, does it set a precedent that people go in? We had the debate about the Lakeside Cafe as well. So we got all this happening, and do we allow Pandora's box if we actually do allow this one? I mean, my instincts say on a short-term basis, this really ought to be allowed. But I know that if we do that, we're going to get more wanting to go at this, because, and the other questions is, and I'm not sure if it's a planning matter or not, is how many pizza takeaway businesses can we allow in Cwmbran, because there's an awful lot of them, and whether they're in industrial estates or a town centre or the centre, you know, where are we going with this? And it's questions like that I want to know, really, because I don't know if we've got enough detailed information on it. Right. Can you answer that, Rebecca, if you would?
Rebecca, I can understand what the members are saying. We'll be taking a long-term decision, and this is only needed over a short term. Is there any way we can say yes over a short term, because we are in very unusual circumstances at the moment?
Yes, yeah. Bear with me a second. Okay, so we have had a look at whether it is possible to give a temporary consent, but unfortunately it doesn't comply with the Welsh Government advice on temporary permissions. So this advises that temporary consent should only be granted if the reason a time limit is necessary is because of the effect of the development on the amenity of the area. So in terms of an A3 takeaway, say if it was going into a residential area, we could maybe grant a temporary consent just to make sure that it doesn't cause disturbance to residents late at night. So that would be that would be sort of appropriate. And then it says it also advises that temporary permission would normally only be appropriate either where the applicant proposes temporary development or the applicant hasn't proposed temporary development. In this case, they've asked for a permanent consent. Or when a trial is needed to assess the effect of the development on the area. But we don't think any of this applies in this case, so that makes it difficult.
Right, thank you. Yes, but it does make it difficult. Yes, yeah. Thank you, Rebecca. Right, Hugh, you are next on the list.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. You've just actually asked the question that I was going to ask. It seems to me that I've taken on board all of the things that have been said in the debate. Obviously, the LDP was put in place before we had the pandemic. I've listened to the impassioned pleas, and I can see that this person has obviously supported a lot of employment within the borough for quite a number of years. And I think the loss of space is quite a small amount of space. We're only talking 27 square meters. Again, with contravention of Welsh Government guidelines, I do take on board the point that's been made that we have to think outside the box, as these are exceptional circumstances. I was minded to support the application. It seemed to me that from what he'd put in his email that he'd sent through to us prior to the meeting, this did come across to me as if it was like a temporary measure for being able to get a revenue stream, an income stream coming in. And you asked the question, Chair, in terms of whether it would be possible to grant a temporary application if we were worried about setting a longer term precedent for the area. Is there any way that we could grant an application with a time constraint, so it would be reviewed again after maybe 2 years? Is that possible?
Yeah, I mean, I just went through the guidance from Welsh Government in terms of temporary consents, and the applicant hasn't asked for a temporary consent in this instance.
I just wondered whether that had actually been discussed with the applicant, Rebecca.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say.
Yeah, so we haven't discussed whether a temporary consent would be acceptable to him. No.
Would we go back to him, Rebecca, the applicant, and ask, would he accept, say, a 24-month consent?
Can I just add, Richard, would you be happy with that?
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. From our point of view, it's a difficult one, and I don't want you to think that we apply policies blindly, because we've done a lot of thinking about this one. The two policies on this is obviously seeking to protect the town centre and to protect the industrial estate, and those are two things that, whilst the LDP was prior to COVID, those two essential issues are issues that we will need to consider going forward because of COVID, because we want our town centres to be vibrant places, and we want the industrial estates to be available for an economic recovery. So, but then you look at the individual application and look at the particular circumstances of the applicant, and that's what makes it very difficult. A temporary consent does seem to solve some of these issues, although in our opinion, and we have looked at this, number one, the applicant doesn't intend this to be a temporary solution because he hasn't proposed that. He's proposed this as a permanent situation, which means we don't have any control. It would have to be the applicant that decides himself to terminate it. And I can't see that happening if a business is built up. I'm not sure that that would be the case. The other thing that I would be concerned about, and I think this is in the advice as well, is that where somebody invests in a property, and in this particular case, it would need to be fitted out with cooking equipment. So quite a lot of investment needs to go in there. It's then not appropriate to say, despite all those physical works and investment, we will stop it after 2 years. I think that would become very, very difficult. So I get that members are concerned about the economic situation. We are trying to take, I suppose, a look at the bigger picture, looking at the incremental erosion, I suppose, of industrial estates and looking at the future as well, and trying to make a very difficult decision. But ultimately, you know, I think it's been a very good debate. I think this is very much something that members need to consider. My worry, I suppose, is that going forward, we've talked about precedent, and we've, when we dealt with the Greggs and we've dealt with others, and we've got an application coming up next actually on this committee where it's another policy issue. And that's why I'm saying that we don't treat policies blindly. We do look at whether there are good reasons for going against them sometimes. But in this case, we feel that the policy issue should prevail. But as I said, I think it's been a good debate, and it is for members really to take a view on this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Richard. We've got Jason next to speak.
Yeah, thanks for letting me come back in, Chair. I just want to bring up 2 quick points, really. The first is what Councillor Ashley said on the market, this being a pizza place. I don't see it as being this planning committee's job to dictate the market. That's on the applicant who's decided that there's a market there that he wants to attack. So whether it's a pizza place or they make donuts or whatever, I don't think that's of consideration to us, really. But what is of consideration to us is this policy, and I think if the planning department are looking to reject this on the basis of retaining employment space, it seems to me that this application actually supports that policy by putting additional employment into that building, which would otherwise lose it. And I think when you consider those two kind of juxtapositions where we're saying it's going to lose employment space, and I understand it's the type of employment space being industrial or manufacturing in nature versus an A3 use, I think we need to take maybe a different view and say, look, this application is actually supporting long-term sustainable employment that is being invested in, as Richard said, is being invested in terms of facilities and kitchen, and it secures the type of employment that we're looking to retain under this policy. Then I see this as a win-win, really, in terms of the application. So thank you.
Right. Thank you. Do you want to come back in, Richard?
Shall I?
No, Chair. Sorry,
Okay.
Rebecca, are you gonna?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just going to clarify that the policy, the EET5, when it refers to employment floor space, it specifically says B1, B2, and B3, and that wouldn't include A3. So I can see where you're coming from, but it is you know, specified that it would be those employment industrial uses rather than A1 retail uses, A3.
Yeah, so I think we're talking about types of jobs rather than jobs themselves. So we're almost saying we're trying to industrial manufacturing jobs because that's what this area is classified as, but the applicant is bringing additional different types of jobs to the area, and I think we need to consider that as a whole rather than just be siloed into those different manufacturing areas.
Chair, I've got nothing to add to that now, no.
Right, thank you, Richard. Rebecca, do you want to add anything?
No, thank you very much.
Right, thank you. Stuart, you are next to speak. You haven't unmuted yourself, Stuart.
I'm sorry, I was corrected by Councillor O'Connell talking about markets. He probably knows much more about that than I do. But no, I shouldn't have commented on them. You're right, Jason. But there's certainly a saturation of pizzas. But if the market takes it, the market takes it. The thing I was going to draw attention to, that we've actually scrutinised the opportunities for jobs, and I'm very mindful of the fact in Prosperous Scrutiny Committee we looked at this, and that was what I was feeling. I'm sure there's other members on this planning committee that were mindful of the fact we need to retain as many jobs as possible, and that was my concern about this. But the suggestion of a temporary thing and permanent planning committee, I mean, I struggle with this, because at the end of the day, this is Guy's business, and there's a lot of jobs here. So that was what I was alluding to, was the fact that the economic development people had actually put no objection to this, which was the bit quite significant. They hadn't put no objection to it. They're obviously concerned that we retain as many jobs as possible. Is that part of our planning consideration, or can it be?
Right, you want Rebecca to comment on it? Or Richard, you want to come in?
Yeah, very much so, because I think that is something different. The other aspect of this was, under the COVID stuff, is there any planning consideration there?
I think, to answer those two questions in one, really, we are working with our economic development colleagues, and with the replacement local development plan, and looking at the way forward there. And as you know, we've had studies done. We've had to update those studies given the COVID situation. But the view generally is nobody really knows what the impact will be. So we're all struggling a little bit in terms of what to do. I think economic development have felt very strongly that there's an existing company here that is struggling, and therefore anything that helps that company is a good thing, and I totally appreciate that. We've considered that, but again, the LDP obviously is our starting point, and we would always look at the policies, and these policies are for wider benefits, not just for the particular proposal in front of us, but generally they're strategic policies that look at what we want to see in the town centres, what we want to see in the industrial estates. And as I said, I'm repeating myself now, and I apologise for that, but we feel that going forward, whilst we don't know exactly what's going to happen, it's an important thing to, generally speaking, to protect town centres and to protect industrial land. I hope that helps to answer your question.
Chair, coming back, I mean, I think members would probably generally accept that, Richard, but the problem we've got is we've got a business sat where it's sat, and the number of people that are employed by it, I think this is where members are struggling. And I would totally agree with your town centre and policy, because I serve on community council, and that is our policy as well. But I think the problem is that this company needs an extra income stream, and I accept what our business members have said about that. And it is how we keep that firm. But this is not just a policy for one company, it's a policy for a whole number of companies in the Cwmbran area. So it's a difficult one.
Right, thank you, Stuart. Right, Gaynor, I got you down next to speak.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, we all know how important it is to keep the town centres vibrant, but it's not all town centres. All businesses are important, no matter where they are in the borough. They're all important. Now, the one that's taken the biggest gamble in this is the applicant itself. Now, if he wants to spend that money to put it together, then he obviously believes that it's going to work. Now, all these empty industrial units that we've got all over the borough, they end up being empty for years and years and years. Now, this applicant should be given the chance. He's the one that's taken the gamble, and he should be given a chance and to keep his staff employed. And it doesn't matter what he's selling, it's a business. And as I say, as Jason said, it doesn't matter if it's pizzas, it could be anything. But this applicant should be supported because he's the one that's taking the gamble and he's the one that believes it's going to work. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Gaynor. Right, I can't see any other members wishing to speak. So does anybody want to move a proposal?
I'll move that, Chair. I'll move it.
What are you moving?
To propose for the applicant.
So you are against the officer's recommendation?
Yeah, propose for the applicant, yes.
Right.
For approval.
For approval, right. Is there a seconder?
I'll second that.
Right, it's been seconded. Right, Geraint, could you please ask members in alphabetical order to state whether they are for, against or abstaining? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Can we have the motion, please? As it is now.
As it is now.
Yeah.
Ronnie, do you want to say it again?
Yes, I propose that the applicant's application be approved and go against the officer's recommendation to turn it down.
Right. Everybody okay?
I'm not sure if Richard Lewis wants to come in, Chair. I think he's indicated in the chat.
Yes, Richard.
Apologies, Chair. Just because there's a motion to approve the application, just to be clear on the options that members have with that motion. Obviously, this if it is decided to approve the application, there are no conditions at the moment on the application. It would normally be that we would apply conditions to the application. So from members' point of view, they would have two options. One would be to defer the application so that we can come back at next committee with suggested conditions for members to consider, or members can make that decision now to approve the application and give us delegated powers to add appropriate conditions so that we can issue the consent. I just feel that needs to be perhaps part of the motion, because once the decision is taken, we need to be careful we're not giving unconditional consent.
Yeah.
Chair, if I can
yes.
come back on that one then, of what Richard just said,
Yeah.
I would accept the second recommendation. I don't feel as though this application should be held up any longer, but time it comes back to committee and the officers bring conditions with it, I would accept that we accept it today, then the officers come later with some conditions set on the application. If that's all right with the rest of the committee, of course.
Yes, Hugh Bevan has seconded that. He's come up in the corner to say that. Is that right, Hugh?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Well, can we say the officers could bring it back to the next planning committee? The
With conditions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Right, we'll take the vote now. Having heard all that and the conditions to members at the next meeting. Okay.
So, Chair, if I can say one thing as well, and to everybody, how difficult it has been for everybody, and with the situation we're in, and I just hope we don't have to come across this very often, and we all feel so sad for everybody that's losing their jobs, but it's been a difficult decision for this committee, and I do respect everything the officers do, as they know that, and they have difficult decisions to make, and I do really respect them for that as well. Thank you.
Right. Thank you for that, Ronnie. Okay, Geraint, can we go into the vote, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. If I can start with Councillor Ashley, please.
Agreed.
Councillor Bevan.
Approve with conditions, please.
I agree with conditions as well, by the way.
Councillor Burnett.
Approve with conditions.
Councillor Constance.
Approve with conditions.
Councillor Evans.
Approve with conditions.
Councillor Hawler,
Approve with conditions.
Councillor James,
Approve with conditions.
Councillor Jenkins,
Approve with conditions.
Councillor Jones,
Approve with conditions.
Councillor O'Connell,
Approved.
Councillor Parish,
Approve with conditions.
and then yeah, in the meeting. So that's unanimous, Chair.
Right, thank you. That's 11-4. So this application has been approved, and we will see the conditions probably at the next planning meeting. Thank you for that. We'll move on to agenda item 6, planning application 20/P/0/0532/FUL. Change of use from retail.
Chair, can I just invite Councillor Dave Thomas back into the meeting first?
Oh, yes, forgotten about Dave. Bring him back in, please. Is he in?
Yeah, he's in now.
He's in. Right. Thank you for that. Dave.
Sorry, Chair, to interrupt, but I think Polly was looking to try and come in.
All
say
right.
something.
Right. I can't look at two things at the same
Sorry.
time. I'm reading the planning application number. Do you want me to go through it again?
Chair, could I just come in a moment before you start?
Yes.
Councillor Gaynor James needs to make a declaration before we start the consideration of this application because she wasn't here when we made declarations at the beginning.
Right.
Councillor James.
Yeah, thanks, Polly. Yeah, I did put my hand up just now, so I could just sort of like get in there first. And yes, because of member of Pontypool Community Council. Thank you, Polly.
Right. Thank you, Polly. Thank you, Gaynor. Right. We'll move on to agenda item 6, planning application 20/P/0532/FUL. Change of use from retail A1 to gymnasium D2 and various external alterations, including new cycle parking at 2 George Street, Pontypool. Can I ask Claire Hall, Senior Planner, to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. I'm just having a bit of a technical issue, just sharing my screen. Bear with me a second. Bear with me. It's allowing me to share every screen except the one I need to see. Oh, why isn't it there? Ah, there you go. All right. Can members see that?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so this is a planning application that is coming to members purely because it's contrary to local development plan policy. Just by way of background, the officers granted delegated approval for a change of use to the gym at just a couple of doors up at number 6 in the summer. The reason that wasn't contrary to policy is because it was only related to the upper floors, so it didn't actually affect the retail use that was on the ground floor. Okay. Yeah, so this is an application for number 2 George Street. The application is to change the use of the vacant New Look store to a new gymnasium. There's 3 floors to the property. So this is the front elevation, this is the rear elevation, this is the ground floor with the main entrance point, but there's also a secondary entrance point at the rear in the basement. So it's a new health and fitness suite, usual gym equipment, cross trainers, treadmills, weights, that sort of thing. This is the listed building that's referred to in the report, which is the adjacent bank. So this is the vacant property. There are no changes to the exterior proposed apart from some signage, which is subject of a separate application, and some ecological enhancement measures, which are proposed to the rear of the building to address the requirement for ecology enhancements, which is a planning policy requirement. As I say, the reason it's presented to members for decision is because LD policy RLT6 prevents a loss of A1 retail uses in this part of Pontypool town centre. So this is obviously a gym use, which is not A1 retail, it's a D2 use, so it's contrary to that policy. However, officers have looked at the survey data, which is obviously based on the existing local plan, which is some years old now, and we're looking at more up-to-date information in Planning Policy Wales 10, the Welsh Government's commitment to town centre first for developments such as this for sustainable reasons, so that people can come into town, do mixed uses in terms of their trips. They may go pop to the shops, get their hair cut, and then go to the gym for a workout all in one visit, to try and kickstart the revival of the town centre. So it is contrary to LDP policy, but the recommendation is for approval because we think the material considerations of the more up-to-date Planning Policy Wales 10 advice and the COVID situation means that we should be trying to encourage as many sustainable developments within the town centre as possible. Therefore, the application is recommended for approval.
Thank you, Claire. Right, the only person I can see that's come up to speak is Gaynor. Am I right, Geraint?
That's correct, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to let the committee know that I welcome this application. Again, it's going to fill an empty premises. Retail at the moment is very difficult, and as you know, it's the independents, the little small independents that are hanging on in there, and it's the big boys that are failing. Now, this is a large premises, and if it wasn't taken on by anybody, it would be empty for years. So I really welcome this application, and it's also going to bring people into the town. They might spend a little bit more money rather than being in the gym. So just to let, I just welcome the application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Gaynor. There was a lot of interruption there. I don't know where it was coming from. Can't you? Gaynor, you're muted.
Yeah, there's someone on the phone over the other side of the office then.
Oh,
sorry, Chair.
With you, okay. Right. I got Stuart next, then Ron. Stuart, would you like to come in?
I'm generally in favour of this. I agree with what Gaynor's saying, but I wanted to know, some time ago, I remember, what was it, must have been about 8, maybe 10 years ago, there was a survey done of gyms, swimming pools, etc. in the borough, and I just wondered, we've got one in Cwmbran Town Centre, which is very popular. I think this would be popular, but what is the prevalence of gyms in the borough, and would this affect any of the ones locally? You've got clubs have done a lot of things. I just wondered what the competition is like, bearing in mind that obviously we had the last discussion about businesses, and this is a business, whether we can stand all these gyms. I'm just wondering whether you'd looked at that, and whether Jason's going to tell me off for asking this question. But obviously businesses know this, but there's only so much you can do. And I remember the conversation about the rugby club up the Varteg and the one over there and the one in Blaenavon. There's a lot of these places around. Are they sustainable?
Right, Claire, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The short answer to that is it's not the land use planning systems to role to get involved in competition between market competition between same land uses. There is an existing planning permission in place for the same use by the same applicant 2 doors up. I would think that they're probably not going to implement both, but they could do, or a rival could come in and make use of the other permission. And of course, you've got PALC, which is the council's own building with a facility in town, which may very well be affected competition-wise by this development. But as I said, we're a land use planning authority. It's not our role to interfere with the market unless there's a public interest reason for doing so. And the reason for interfering with the market in a land use sense is purely because of location of uses, and make sure that they are located in the right place. And quite frankly, a gym use in a town centre is entirely appropriate from a land use planning point of view.
Thank you for that answer, Claire. I was only out. I mean, Gaynor says it. Go shopping, do your workout, come back out again. Probably very popular, and it probably will have a beneficial effect.
Right. Thank you, Ron. You were next.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as Gaynor just said, she welcomes it. It just fills another unit within the town centre. As you know, there's so many empty. But and as Claire was saying, it's change of use, different policies, whatever they are, from retail to whatever, A3, A1, there's so many we don't all understand. But all I want to say there, I think this justifies our decision on the last application down at Llantanum. You can change one thing in Pontypool, and yet it was another thing down at Llantanum. The officer's recommendation was against, but they all have their reasons, they know. But I really do feel better now that this has justified the approval of the last application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ron. Dave, you want to come in?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that I will be supporting this application. I completely agree with what Councillor James has said, and she's made a very good case on it. And yeah, I just want to say I will be approving this.
Right, thank you for that. Right, I can't see anyone else wanting to come in. So can a member move a proposal, please?
I'll definitely propose that, Chair.
Right.
I'll second that one.
Yeah.
I think that was Steve, was it, seconding that? So, Geraint, I'll have to ask you again, can you call out the members in alphabetical order to state whether they're for, against or abstaining?
No problem, thank you, Chair. If I can start with Councillor Ashley.
For.
Councillor Bevan.
For.
Councillor Burnett.
For.
Councillor Constance.
For.
Councillor Evans.
For.
Councillor Hawler.
For.
Councillor James.
For.
Councillor Jenkins.
For.
Councillor Jones.
For.
Councillor O'Connell.
For.
Councillor Parish.
For.
And Councillor Thomas.
For.
Thank you
Right.
all. That's unanimous, Chair.
That is unanimous. So this application has been approved. Right, we've gone through the agenda. So I thank everyone for your attendance and all your contributions. And I'll now close the meeting.
Thank you very much, Chair. Have a good day all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.